We have mentioned the fact that it's World Earth Day. We've mentioned the potential for flax fiber to be a more eco-sensitive material in terms of product development, but also it's an agriculturally a very interesting one. Just last year, very important research from Switzerland, who did test fields in Switzerland and in Spain, suggested that converting from a monoculture, growing a single or several simple varieties in the same field year on year, which is of course destroying any structure in the soil, reducing local biodiversity, by converting from a monoculture to a multiculture, or in fact to crop rotation, improves biodiversity and soil health. And of course, one of the key rotational crops, and this is an ancient wisdom and we'll know this, is flax, which has a short-ish root that you can see, but very long roots beyond that. So it improves soil structure in a wonderful way. There's no better person to have in the room now to give us our next presentation than the lead of Climate Farmers. And Philippe, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you very much for finding time today. Can I ask you to come in and let us know about your work?
Sure, happily. Pleasure to be here. First off, I have to start with a little apology though. We had a blackout here in Amsterdam at my place in the whole neighborhood. So I had to move to a cafe, which means there is a little bit of background noise. My apologies for that one. So what I'm presenting you right now is basically the theory of change that we developed at Climate Farmers in order to scale regenerative agriculture in Europe. The basis of this is the fact that we have been working over the last 3 years with about 600 farmers from all over Europe, basically, and helping them in the transition. And this is kind of a bit condensed, some of our major learnings and what we think needs to happen to make this change reality, basically. A little bit of background. I think here in this group, we already have a decent amount of knowledge, but agriculture is one of the key basically contributors to climate change right now, with 24% of all greenhouse gas emissions, as well as participation in all of the planetary boundary crossings that we have right now. The good news is there is a solution to all of this, which is called regenerative agriculture, which has been quite hyped over the last 2 years. It's playing into most of the big trends in agriculture right now. Regenerative agriculture can help with reducing CO2 emissions, water shortage, biodiversity increase, as we just heard, as well as the very current problems of, for example, the rising fuel and fertilizer costs for farmers. For example, to put things in context, fertilizer costs have grown from last year January to this year January by 800%. So a lot of conventional farmers are struggling there massively right now. What regenerative agriculture does, it captures carbon in the soil through the general photosynthesis of plants. It builds biodiversity. It helps with avoiding erosion, as we, for example, have seen the outcomes last year in summer in Germany and the Netherlands due to the heavy rainfalls. And it generally increases resilience of farms towards the effects of climate change. The problem is, it's not happening at scale right now. We have about 16.5 million farmers in the European Union. When we started with Climate Farmers, we estimated about 1,000 regenerative farmers. Now we're estimating about 10,000. So still, we're only talking about 0.01%. The issue for this is, on the one hand, there is not enough model farms where farmers can see regenerative agriculture in action, which is why we are working hard to basically bring 10% of all European farmland under regenerative management. Once we have this, we expect an avalanche effect because people can see how it works in practice. So we expect more farmers to jump on the train. So we think that getting from 0 to 10 is going to be harder than getting from 10 to 100. And at the same time, because it is an ancient practice and most indigenous people have been farming regeneratively, but the term itself and the hype is very new, and there's not a lot of long-term studies on this yet. So even though we kind of know that it works, we still need to make a proper case that it also makes sense economically, because we do not have a lot of farms that have transitioned successfully for more than 5 or 10 years. So we're still building this case. Once we have these two places in place, we expect that regenerative agriculture is going to become the mainstream agriculture instead of the niche which we have right now. In order to make this happen, we need mostly knowledge and finance. For knowledge, we have the Climate Farmers Academy, which is a non-profit. For finance, we have the Climate Farmers for-profit arm. On the knowledge side, we're connecting farmers with each other in order to exchange best practices. We are creating tutorials for farmers, and we're basically helping them with creating an individual transition plan for their individual farms and their individual context with a build, measure, learn approach. So we're running experiments on farm, run them for 1 season, and then we evaluate how these experiments have been working out. At the same time, on the financial part, we're working on making basically ecosystem benefits of regenerative farmers measurable. So this includes increase in biodiversity and increase in soil organic carbon, and then we enable farmers to get paid for this. Based on the experiments that we've been running in the last 2 years, we came to the conclusion that these projects, which are presenting now, are the most valuable ones. There is the farm enterprise analysis, where we use basically weather data sets from our partner Wageningen University, and from remote sensing technology in order to make a farm analysis on individual farms' context to see what would make sense in terms of transition to region ag in their specific context. The second one is community as a service. Farmers like to learn from other farmers. So we have a European-wide Slack community and local WhatsApp groups where farmers can exchange with each other and can basically accompany each other on the way towards regenerative agriculture. We also have a consultant database. Unfortunately, there's a lot of consultants out there which are doing good work but are not good at presenting themselves. And there's a lot of consultants out there which are not doing good work but are very good at making fancy websites. And we are helping to facilitate in this process by having consultants which are basically reviewed by our farmers, and then other farmers can see this review. So through this, they can establish real credibility, which goes further than just a fancy website. We're also developing a blueprint process in order to help conventional, basically agriculture businesses and large-scale food corporates to transition. This is very context specific. So we're looking at the personal context of the farmer, the business context of the farm, the ecological context, and then we match them with our experts in order to make the transition plan. We also use monitoring technology, so remote sensing technology, in order to see what's really happening on the farm and to generate a report for the farmer in terms of the effects that are taking place on his land due to his regenerative practices. And then the last one is basically the carbon plus credits. So for businesses which want to compensate the CO2 emissions, which can't be avoided, we connect them with a local farmer so they can support a farmer in the transition, they can visit the farmer directly, and they can through this help in the transition towards regenerative agriculture for the farmer and for the European agricultural scene as a whole. And yeah, all of this is basically the climate farmers approach. We generally work with doing partnerships. So we're looking for collaborators in the scene. This can be political partners, farmer associations, or other companies. And then we see what expertise they bring in, what expertise we bring in, and how we can run a project together. All of this always with the aim of getting 10% of all European farmland under regenerative management. And that's it. Any questions?
And that's it, he says. Listen, congratulations on your ingenuity for getting to a cafe and with a farmer's background on your Zoom screen. We thought you could be anywhere, but really tremendous. And this is super exciting. This is really a way forward to make a lot of the demonstrator projects, even the small, when, you know, we're growing small demonstrator projects in local community gardens. The point is that we can flag up this real regenerative approach to agriculture and to design. And I think there's a couple of, you know, really wonderful models that you're doing, and the knowledge and funding in a transition, the knowledge network in this transitional blueprint idea, I think will have real reach. And I hope that there are connections that will stem out from today. I'm going to ask a friend and colleague, Rosie Bristow, to come in now. I almost would say needs no introduction because we had an introduction last time, but I do want to say, in terms of knowledge acquisition, Rosie is in the middle of her master's, so I'm very grateful to Rosie for breaking off her studies in a tense time of write-up at the moment. And Rosie has experience in growing flax on a farm, and in fact is supporting our own move towards a fibre shed, a regenerative textile network in Fife in Scotland. Rosie, over to you.
Hi. Yeah, great presentation. It was super fascinating. I was just wondering, you were saying about wanting to connect with other organizations, and whether you had anything to do with the Land Workers Alliance or La Via Campesina, and sort of, do you fit into other kind of like land workers kind of groups, like globally?
Land workers groups. So you mean people who are working at farms?
Yeah, so the Land Workers Alliance in the UK and La Campesina, which is like a global group, are kind of like a workers' union, I guess, but they're really into regenerative agriculture and they might be good partners. They have huge membership of people that work on the land that are into regenerative agriculture.
Interesting. I have to say, UK is not our focus group, let's say. So we have some UK farmers, and we have especially, there's some really good consultants in the UK, leading Ben Taylor Davis, which we have contact with. But we don't have a collaboration with a UK organization in terms of transition yet. Could be interesting to get the context. I know that getting good workers is in many European countries actually a big problem, especially with skills in regenerative agriculture. So, I mean, Brexit is making UK-Europe collaborations a bit more difficult.
Yeah, it's really annoying. But the other one, the La Via Campesina, that's a global organization, so they would definitely.
You write it in the chat.
Yeah.
I would love to. I will check it out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Rosie, thank you very much. Philippe, there was method in my madness of asking you in today. I hope that you might be introduced to a whole new cohort of folk in the UK and, of course, across in the States.